Hello, welcome to Jetline Training Standard Operating Procedure module. Here we will speak about normal SOP, normal procedures, supplementary procedures, normal checklists and standard callouts. So, to help during this presentation we will use officially published Airbus documents FCOM FCTM QRH. When we open the FCOM, you can see here under the chapter Normal Procedures, Standard Operating Procedures. Here in the Standard Operating Procedure chapter, you can find some different subchapters divided by the phases of the flight. We start with the safety exterior inspection, then preliminary cockpit preparation, exterior walk around, and so on. So when we open, for example, safety exterior inspection, here you can see in detail what needs to be done, what needs to be checked, and on the right side who is doing it. In this case, Wilcox CM2. Okay. Then when we go further on the next page to the preliminary cockpit preparation, I will just a little bit enlarge it. Then you can see who is doing what in this phase of the flight. And also here you can see a little bit of more explanation how this check needs to be done. So this is not very user friendly because you need to read page by page and so on. So for that purpose Airbus developed this chapter, task sharing, where you can find it in a little bit better way for you to learn it. But before we start with this one, just explanation about the roles in the Airbus. So we have CM1, CM2, pilot flying or pilot monitoring. CM1 usually the left hand seated pilot, captain, CM2 co-pilot, pilot flying, the one who flies, and pilot monitoring, the one that monitors. So when we speak about the roles, it is defined here as you can see it. I will also enlarge it a little bit. A little bit later we will see it in a table that, for example, here the pilot flying is doing these things and the pilot monitoring is doing these things. Okay? Sometimes the pilot flying and pilot monitoring need to do the same thing, and then in this case, but not necessarily simultaneously. So in that case you can see that CM1 needs to obtain the airfield data and the CM2 also needs to obtain the airfield data, not necessarily simultaneously. But sometimes some items need to be done by both pilots simultaneously, and in this case it is written like this: CM1, CM2, logbook and MEL CDL items check. So in this case these items are displayed in a single row. So how does this look like? It looks like this. Okay, you have a nice table. CM1 here in this case in safety exterior inspection is doing nothing, but CM2 need to check the wheel chocks, landing gear doors, APU area. And then when we come to the preliminary cockpit preparation, engine 1 master levels off, engine mode selector norm, weather radar off, and so on. As you can see here, in front of some items you have the asterisks. This asterisk means that this item need to be checked during the transit cockpit preparation. So only these items with the asterisks, not the other items. What does it mean? When you start a flight on some aircraft, some MSN registration, first flight of a day of a crew, well, you need to do all. And then on next flight on the same aircraft, on that day, you need to check only the items marked with the asterisks. For example, you fly from Frankfurt to Vienna, and then before first flight you check all, and you do all, and then on a flyback from Vienna to Frankfurt you do only the items marked with the asterisks. As you can see here, CM2 needs to check the batteries, check an autos, but how to do it, what to check, I say again, we go back here in standard operating procedures in the FCOM, and then we go to the preliminary cockpit preparation, and we find the batteries here, and this is the explanation in detail what needs to be checked and how. So these are the normal procedures, and if we go to the QRH, here in a QRH, in a normal procedure, when we open it, we have only three actually phases of a flight: safety exterior inspection, preliminary cockpit preparation, and securing the aircraft. Why we have only these three in a QRH? Because these are the only ones in a normal SOP that can be done with the help of the paper, with the help of the QRH. So by doing the preliminary cockpit preparation, you can open the QRH and you can do it with the help of the book. The rest needs to be done by heart. So when we go here to all these cockpit preparation items, then before pushback start, engine start, we are doing it in a flow patterns, and we are doing it by memory. So without help of the paper, without help of the book, we need to know these flow patterns by heart. To check that we did everything correct, we need to use the checklists. So now we will speak a little bit about the normal checklists, and I say again, normal checklist. Where you can find a checklist? You can find it at the back cover page of the QRH. Common mistake for pilots coming from other aircraft types is to call some procedures in a QRH, abnormal, emergency, as a checklist. For example, landing gear gravity extension checklist. No, this is not a checklist, this is a procedure. The only checklist that we have on the Airbus is this one, the normal checklist. And there is a big difference that you need to remember from the beginning. When we are performing procedure, whatever procedure, abnormal procedure or supplementary procedure, we are reading all the line, and then we are acting and doing something, either pilot flying or pilot monitoring. In a checklist, we are checking that some items performed by memory are done correctly. So we are reading only the left side, and the right side is answered by the pilot flying. Let's do one example: cockpit preparation. So the pilot flying, after a specific trigger, calls for the cockpit preparation checklist. Then the pilot monitoring takes the checklist and read only the left side: gear, pins and covers. Pilot flying checks and answers removed. Fuel quantity. Then the pilot flying press the fuel page, check the quantity, check the balance, and answers 8,000 kilograms balanced, and so on. At the end of the cockpit preparation checklist, the pilot monitoring need to announce cockpit preparation checklist completed. All procedures in the Airbus, normal, and also the checklists, actually when to read the checklist, are defined by the triggers. So we need to go to the FCTM. In the FCTM, we have here, below the normal SOP, normal procedures, we have a chapter called normal checklists. When we open the normal checklist, here you can see and how to read the checklist correctly and when to read the checklist. So let's check for the cockpit preparation. We have a trigger to call for this checklist when the departure briefing is completed. So when the departure briefing is completed and all items done, the pilot flying calls for the cockpit preparation checklist. For example, here in a before start, when to call for the before start checklist: when the pushback clearance or start clearance is received, and before start flow pattern is completed. And here you can see that is written what you need to say, what you need to check. For example, takeoff speeds and thrust. So this must be done by both pilots. So first the pilot flying reads aloud V1 125, VR 125, V2 129, flex 52, and then the same thing by the pilot monitoring. So everything is here very well defined. When we speak about the supplementary procedures, we need to know what are the supplementary procedures. We can find supplementary procedures in the FCOM. Here below the task sharing, supplementary procedures. Supplementary procedures they are not abnormal or emergency procedures. There are some, let's say, normal procedures, but not performed on a routine basis, not regularly. Such as, for example, if we go for the adverse weather, airframe de-icing, anti-icing procedure on ground. So this is not done regularly, only during the winter. Or if we speak about the engines, and when we open the engines, engines start with an air start unit. This is the one that you actually do when you don't have the APU. And how to do the supplementary procedures? This is also very well explained in the FCTM. So if you go for the FCTM, in the Airbus operational philosophy chapter, which is the one that you need to study a lot, and you go for the task sharing rules and communication, here you will see explanation of who is doing what. In a normal SOP, the pilot flying is flying, navigating, pilot monitoring, it's actually monitoring and communicating. And in supplementary procedures, this is the task sharing that you should use. If this procedure is related to the engine start, like the one that we need to start without the APU, with external power and external air, when it is recommended, and so read it, this is how you do it, for the crew to first to read the whole procedure in advance, to familiarize themselves about the procedure, and then when the time comes to do it, the pilot monitoring reads the procedure, the whole line, and the pilot flying acts on command. For all other supplementary procedures like airframe de-icing, for example, because it's not related to the engine start, it's read and do principle, so the pilot monitoring reads and the pilot monitoring do. So this is all for now, and in the next module we will speak about the abnormal and emergency procedures. But before that, no, it's not over. We need to go for something very, very important, and this is how to communicate in the Airbus. For this, well, we need to go to the standard callouts. In the standard callouts chapter, in the FCOM, which you can find here, is explained how to communicate between pilots, what to say, what is proper wording. So this is the one that is really important. At the beginning you can see here some general terms how to do it, but if you go further on, you can see here summary by phases. It's actually here, summary for each phase. How to communicate between pilot flying or pilot monitor with a ground mechanic or with the ATC or with each other. Okay. For example, in a taxi flow, when taxi clearance obtained, clear left, clear right, clear right, clear left, brake check, pressure 0, On some MSN you don't say pressure zero, but it depends on some aircrafts. And then how to do the flight control check and so on. So this is the language that you will use on the Airbus, and this is really important for you to learn it correctly, to speak for the other pilot to understand you, what you want. Okay, thank you for your attention, and see you now for real in the next module. Bye bye.